Friends, you may be wondering why I did not discuss the Harappan ancestry and the appearance of the Harappan people in my previous talk, in part 2 of my talk. In part 2, I mostly discuss about the genesis of the Harappan culture and the development of the Harappan civilization based on archaeological evidence. And in this part, I'm going to discuss exclusively the new research that we initiated in Indian subcontinent recently. In order to get insight into the ancestry of the people, composition of the population, relation between different civilizations, different cultures, and the relation between ancient population and the modern population, we need to have DNA data. We tried very hard, in fact, previously to get DNA from some of the excavated skeletal remains from Harappan sites, but we did not succeed. In fact, this new research was initiated in 2006 and 7 itself, when I started the large-scale excavation at the site of Farmana. Usually by the site of the big settlements, Harappan settlements, we do find Harappan cemeteries. Harappans buried the dead bodies in a separate graveyard, which is usually located 1 kilometer away from their settlement. And Farmana also had perhaps one of the biggest Harappan cemeteries. And we thought that this is an ideal site to initiate this particular research. So one of our important aims at the site of Farmana was to get DNA from the Harappan skeletal remains. And therefore, we decided to excavate cemetery on a very large scale. Friends, we nearly excavated 70 burials at the site, and we tried to extract DNA from those skeletal remains. But unfortunately, we miserably failed there, and we realized the mistake that we did. What we did in fact, we excavated the burials, all the burials at one and the same time, and after 2 months, we tried to extract DNA, and we realized by that time that perhaps the DNA slipped because in between there was a lot of rain and strong sunshine. So the DNA must have been slipped from the bones of the skeletal remains. When I started the work at the site of Rakhigarhi, we were given proper advice by the scientist from the Department of Forensic Studies, University of Seoul in South Korea. And they suggested that we need to change our research strategy. They told that firstly we should take proper precaution for the excavation, because the modern DNA also is very sensitive and can get into the ancient DNA easily. Secondly, they also say that target one burial at a time, not all the burials. Excavate it, immediately document it, and immediately pack the samples and transport it to the laboratories. So we followed this particular method. We took proper precaution for during the excavation, and then of course we excavated one by one, documented them properly, and transported the samples to our laboratory in Deccan College. And then of course in Deccan College also we took the same precaution while cleaning the samples, and finally after cleaning, the samples were sent to CCMA in Hyderabad for the extraction of DNA. So because of this precaution, we succeeded in getting DNA, though in a very small quantity. But this DNA is very, very useful to make lot of inference. And since we have scientific data, in fact, we can certainly use this data for understanding implication of this on the ancient early Indian history. Now, in order to understand the genetic history of the Harappans, it is necessary to understand what was the genetic composition before the Harappans. And therefore, we analyze some data, available data from various sources of the Mesolithic and the pre-Harappan cultures in the Indian subcontinent. And then subsequently, of course, we analyze exclusively the data from the site of Rakhigadi of the Harappan people. Now, the pre-Harappan data is published in science paper, and it is not possible to give the entire details of this paper. It is available in fact in public domain, but I can tell you what are the important highlights of these results. One is that maybe around 13,000 years ago, the hunter-gatherers, maybe the last phase of the hunter-gatherer group, they split into two different branches. One went to Iran and one came to South Asia. Since both of them had a common ancestry, we do see, in South Asian population and also in Iranian population, some common factors. But when the hunter-gatherers came to South Asia, they began to develop maybe agriculture here, and simultaneously a distinct ancestry was being developed here also. So at some stage, before maybe the development of the Harappan culture, the South Asian ancestry was developed here. And then, of course, the same people continued into the Harappan period, and even after the Harappans also, the same ancestry continued in major part of South Asia. The conclusion that we have drawn on the basis of our research in science paper, they are like this. One, genetically steppe integration in South Asia has not happened until 1000 BCE. We do find some mixing of the people, but not large scale, maybe movement of the people till 1000 BCE. Furthermore, mixing with steppe was gradual and not sudden. Thus reject the invasion or replacement of the local South Asian with the steppe population. Clear cut. Second, steppes have arrived in India and mixed with the local population and exchanged their genetic material, but not the ancestry, knowledge and culture. Third, we also have observed that there was a great deal of variance due to differential mixing with diverse local populations. The increase of steppe in south is probably due to much concentration of the steppes at the region after 1000 BCE. We are also ruling out a large-scale spread of farmers with Anatolian roots into South Asia. The centerpiece of the Anatolian hypothesis, that movement of people from the west brought farming into this region, and with it the Indo-European languages. Since no substantial movement of the people occurred, this is checkmate for the Anatolian hypothesis. In fact, in both the papers we made one error in the conclusion. In both the papers we made statement that after 2000 BC, the Indo-European languages began to come to Indian subcontinent. Now we have realized that this is not true, because we do not know much about the origin of the Indo-European language, the place of the origin, etc. So unless we have that data, we cannot really make any statement on the movement of the Indo-European languages. So that is a mistake that we did, of course, in the paper. Then we published the Harappan DNA data from the site of Rakhigarhi in Shell Journal, a very prestigious science journal. And the conclusions drawn in this are, in Rakhigarhi sample we found out that the Harappans were not carrying any genetic signatures from Iranian related ancestry. A lot of people believe that perhaps the Iranian farmers have contributed to the development of the South Asian ancestry. That is not true. It is extremely fascinating and indicative that agriculture in South Asia was invented and practiced by the indigenous population, not the one coming from outside. This sets aside the previous belief that farming was brought by Neolithic Iranians. That is not true. Secondly, it is also evident that significant movement of the Harappans was towards Central Asia. This is very important because we always believe that the so-called Aryans came from Central Asia first, and then of course there was maybe reciprocal movement. But this research indicates that the Harappans first began to move towards Central Asia. For the first time, we are reporting out of India theory on the basis of presence of Harappan-like ancestry in Turkmenistan and also in Iran. In fact, we compared the genetic data, the DNA from Rakhigarhi with the DNA from the population of Shari Sokta in Iran and also Gonur in Turkmenistan. Both the sites, Shari Sokta and Gonur, they were contemporary to the Harappans. And through archaeological data, we also know that there was a lot of trade between these different regions with the Harappans. So what we found in Patna, in the Harappan population at Rakhigarhi, we did not find any genome of the population either from Iran nor from Turkmenistan. But on the other hand, we did find the Harappan genome present in the Shari Sokta population and also in the Gonur population. So this is very, very important. This indicates that first Harappans began to go out and they maybe carried their culture and language with them probably, and then perhaps there was a reciprocal movement happening between these two regions. Our genetic results also indicate that Vedic knowledge was indigenous and not brought by the so-called Indo-Aryans. With these results, we are also corroborating that Harappan civilization was one of the glorious and oldest civilizations in the old world, and proving that the authors or the custodians of the first civilizations were indigenous South Asians. Furthermore, most of the South Asian population are carrying Harappan genes, including those who are raising doubts about these finds. This is also very interesting because we compared the modern population, nearly 140 different groups, about 3,500 people we compared. The gene of the people we compared with the Harappan gene. And interestingly, we found strong Harappan ancestry in all these people. And the Harappan ancestry is present in the modern population from Andaman Nicobar till Kashmir and from Afghanistan till Bengal. So this is very, very interesting, fascinating. And this indicates that even though a lot of people are coming right from the beginning of settled life in this part, they're coming here for maybe some purpose, maybe for trade purpose. So there was a movement happening, but at no stage we can see large-scale migration happening at any stage. And people coming from outside have not really replaced the local ancestry in South Asia. This is very important. And this has a lot of implication on Indian history. The DNA data that we have is very small. And at this stage, we really cannot understand on the basis of this small data the composition of the population during the Harappan times. We need more data. In fact, we need to generate more data. We even at this stage, we do not know the composition of the population at the site of Rakhigadi. There may have been different groups within Rakhigadi because this was the biggest Harappan city. And outside the Harappan region, in fact, they occupied various ecological zones. You find Harappan settlements in the Indus River Basin, in Balochistan, in Punjab, in Rajasthan, in Gujarat, up to Maharashtra. And we also see Harappan contacts quite extensive from Makran coast till the Russian border in north and almost till Bengal region, in fact, in the eastern part. And in south part, perhaps the contact was up to Daimabad in Maharashtra. So, this civilization was spread really on very, very large area. And therefore, we propose that there must have been very diverse population within this group, within this region. The DNA sample that we have, the DNA data that we have, has certainly given us the ancestry of the South Asian people. Even though it is very small data, this has certainly given us this particularly important aspect of the ancient population. And it's not that the Harappan population was different or the population of different periods were different, not like that. The data clearly indicates that from 13,000 BC or 13,000 years ago, there is a continuity in the same populations, in the same ancestry. There is no break in the ancestry at all at any stage. And it continues till the present. So this rules out a large-scale migration of the so-called Aryans at any stage. The Harappans, of course, used this diversity of the population for their own benefit. The diverse population came together and unitedly they developed the Harappan culture and the Harappan civilization in the Indian subcontinent. From the archaeological data, we know that right from the beginning of the settled life, the people of South Asia were in contact with people from other parts of the world, including Mesopotamia, Egypt, Middle East, Persian Gulf region, Central Asia, and there is a possibility that these people were in touch with people from China, about which we do not have much data. The Harappan culture, of course, was developed by the indigenous people. This diverse indigenous population, and they also could have got some idea from their contemporaries. They could have adopted certain technologies, certain traditions, certain cultural elements from the people from different parts of the world, particularly from Egypt, from Mesopotamia, from Central Asia, from Persian Gulf region, etc. And this is how the culture and the civilization was developed, in fact, in the Indian subcontinent. What we need, in fact, because we at this stage we are not really discussing about the Harappa's relation with the contemporary population, because we do not have data. So we need to generate more data. We need to have data from different Harappan regions and also data from the sites which are contemporary to the Harappans. There are a number of Chalcolithic people outside the Harappan region, the Neolithic farmers. So we need to have data from these contemporary cultures also, and then only perhaps we will be able to discuss about the relation between the Harappans and the contemporary population. So this is really now a very important issue, and we need to work in fact rigorously on this particular issue and generate enough data to discuss all the different facets of the Harappan population and the Harappan culture.